Howdy, I'm Pepper Sparkman, and I'm going to be choosing prompt 2 for the CRE, and this is mainly more on my experience of death row. But I just really wanted to start off with the fact of one of the course media stated it was the NPR investigation reveals information about death row in Texas, and it talks about Huntsville is where Texas executes its prisoners, and it was just crazy to me that it's so close to us. I mean, it's literally 50 minutes down the road, and I just thought that was a fun fact, I guess, to point out. But so more on my reflection, if I were wrongly convicted of a crime like murder, I would want people to understand the emotional toll of waiting on death row. So there's many inequities in the criminal justice system. It has significant flaws and that lead to wrongful convictions, like inadequate legal representation and procedural errors create like an environment where where people can suffer like innocence. I just think that that's so crazy how someone can be wrongfully accused and suffer all that time. I don't know. I just that's my opinion. I just think that it literally would be a nightmare to wait and not know and trying to fight for yourself when you know that you're not guilty of anything. So I guess that's just highlighting the system's failures. I think that brings me to another course media that we talked about. It was the executions last week's Tonight with John Oliver. It was like the HBO one. It was like a local interviewer. He starts throwing out ideas like to kill people, and I just thought it was weird because he was like talking about, well, why can't we just use fentanyl or stuff like that? And I just thought that was crazy how natural he was able to talk about that and just like throw out more ideas to like kill others. And I just don't know why that's so natural for us, but I know as Texas, it's like a big state that is more on power. So I'm wondering if that's what the case is. But moving on to the impact on family, I think my family would bear emotional weight of like my wrongful conviction. If I had a spouse, he would definitely face like a heartache, while my children would like struggle with feelings of abandonment and like confusion on like, oh, why is my mom just all of a sudden gone? I think that just is like brings trauma to their lives and relationships for like the future as well. Even if one was able to get out of prison after being wrongfully accused, I think that it would just bring a lot of trauma to relationships, and I just think that bearing that is just so unfair. And then moving on to interpreting wrongful execution, I think it's tough to see wrongful execution as anything but tragic. If my story could raise awareness about systematic flaws and drive conversations about reform, I think it might serve a greater purpose in preventing failures in the injustice system, and injustices in general, I guess. But I just think that, I don't know, in my opinion, kind of going on like with my interviewees as well, and talking about the good death and how choosing something that's like less painful. I think regardless of like the less pain you have for yourself, I think for your family, I think it's just unbearable. Like, I just don't think that's fair at all, and I think that no death is a good death in my opinion. So, okay, and then for the last one, it was awareness of the death penalty, and I wanted to mention that I want others to know that the death penalty perpetrates a cycle of violence, and it has irreversible consequences. Many people are unaware of the psychological toll on families and the societal implications. Educating the public can inspire for advocacy and change for restorative justice, and I think that was mainly what I wanted to focus on, just education on like how wrong this is. And I think that the more we talk about it and the more we make it something that is not okay, I think it might change views of maybe higher and authorities like that are higher. And this also brought me to a lecture that Professor Hernandez brought up, it was on November 1st, and it was, why do we kill people? And I think it mentioned the death penalty costs more than life in prison. So to wrongly convict someone and be put on death row surprises me. Just because out of all things, I feel like the government tries so hard to like not waste money or like spend money on like stuff like that. And I think that them wrongfully accusing someone and putting them on death row for execution, I think that it's just crazy to me that they're spending money on something like that rather than them just being life. I know if someone does something wrong, obviously they need to be in prison, and but to face death and that be more expensive, and they're not even guilty of anything, I just think that's really like, it just surprised me a lot that it costs more and then they still do it. But moving on to my interviews, I interviewed both my roommates, and I gathered different perspectives from both sides. So for the inequities in the criminal justice system, my roommate Anna, she focused on the biases of the courtroom and like being wrongly convicted. Obviously, there's a bias in the courtroom and in trials that wrongfully accuse others, and there's obviously something there that I think is something wrong with the system. And then my roommate Sophia, she emphasized how the criminal justice system is unequal to men, and like considering like from the woman's view, and how they favor, like the justice system favors women more. And I think that brought me back to class lecture Professor Hernandez talked about on October 20th, the factors that influence the likelihood of being executed, and he went over gender, geographic location, race, class, age, intellectual disability, and I think that just fits right in there with the gender and how likely it is for men to be wrongfully accused rather than women. And then their impact on family. Anna noted that the emotional burden of her family and friends, and I think that just like brought in my views on how family is impacted, and also mentioned how there's a barrier between them and them having to fight for her. And then Sophia, she stressed about how everyone is affected around her and based on like future plans that she had previously made. For the wrongful execution, Anna found it hard to see any positives for wrongful execution because lethal injection may be like the closest thing to death. And this is for Sophia as well. They like were pretty similar views on this point. But although like a good death is less pain for the individual, I think as a whole, the family would still have a burden and hurt regardless. And I think that just like, I wanted to bring over like the lethal injections of like anesthetic, paralytic, and potassium chloride that Hernandez mentioned on October 20th, and how, yeah, it stops pain and stuff, but it doesn't stop pain for family members. And I just thought that was good to know because it's just still so sad. And then awareness, Anna stressed, or Sophia, first I will start with Sophia, she discussed how execution happens with, how fast execution happens, I guess, and how quick it is in this, but she still wanted the sense of it being wrong. Like, it's always such a wrong thing to do in her views, but how quick it is, and she wanted to like stress that. And then for Anna, her awareness, she wanted to stress people by telling them that every life is worth living, because we shouldn't have the right to take someone's life and assume that that person can never be better or improve. And I think that kind of brought up one of the course medias that we went over, and it was Lessons from Death Row Inmates by David Dow. And he talked about this guy, Will, and him being executed because of murder without authority, considering his background. And I think, yes, of course, murder's so wrong, but I think that considering his background and the families that he had gone through and all the trauma that he's been affected by, I think that being put on death row was more of an extreme rather than just being life in prison. So I think that, yeah, to end on this, I think the best way is just stressing to tell people that like every life is worth living, and death shouldn't be an answer for anyone that does anything wrong. But these are all opinions, and I hope you enjoy. But